Starting from today, my wife and our kids will live here with us. Please prepare the bath after dinner."
Suddenly, our son, who returned home, is cheerfully talking about moving in, laughing, carrying a large luggage, and, without any notice, the son whom we haven't seen in years has arrived. No matter what, it's too sudden. Shouldn't he have discussed it with us first? When telling so to our son, he glared at us, with an obviously displeased look on his face.
"Isn't it the best gift for you guys, having my wife and our kids back home here? Only terrible parents would take it really negatively like that."
My name is Emily. After my son went to university, my husband, John, and I moved to the countryside, and it's been almost 10 years. Before I knew it, I've reached 50. When we were in the city, I worked hard every day, got married, and managed work while raising our son. My husband was a system engineer at where I worked, and he later became independent, and has been involved in managing a small online shopping site with his friends. The ability to work from home gave a boost to our move to the countryside. However, our busy city life has entirely become a thing of the past. Now, while living leisurely, just the two of us, I work part-time at a nearby shop to contribute to our living expenses. One day I received a phone call from our son, Tom.
"Actually, I need a bit of financial help. It's for our kids, various expenses."
He started off with that, and I unintentionally responded, "Huh?" After graduation, Tom married a woman named Catherine, whom he had been dating since he was a college student, and they had a child. We didn't really question further since he was employed, and it was their own decision, but we wondered which came first, the engagement or the child. Now Tom's family is lively with 3 kids. We received cute photos of our grandkids, but Tom never brought the kids home, saying it would be better if we, who are financially comfortable, visited them in the city. To begin with, he's hardly come home since we moved to the countryside. When he was a student, he was busy with university and couldn't take days off from his part-time job. After working full-time, he hardly had any days off, many things to remember at work, and was also too tired to come back. Once the kids were born, the countryside is far, childcare is busy, they're still small. The excuses were endless. We have time, so it's okay. But Tom has 3 kids to look after. So gradually we gave up on the idea of him coming home at all. After all, whenever we tried to visit, Tom found some reason to avoid that topic. Realizing he no longer wanted to meet us, we gave up, accepting that our son has his own life. Thus, it's been years since we last saw him, but now, out of the blue, he calls up asking for money. Various expenses. Sure, they must be a lot, but what exactly is going on? We can't just hand over money like that. What are they exactly for, and how much?
"Huh? Well, whatever. People need money to live. The more money, the better. It's always needed for something."
Maybe something bad happened? I tried to ask him for the details, but Tom just brushed it off with his usual unserious laugh. Is this really about money for the kids? I felt my longtime motherly instincts kick in.
"Come on, our wedding. It was fun, right? Besides, you guys helped out with Catherine's hospital fees sometimes, right? And just like that."
The hospital fees were because after your lavish wedding and honeymoon, you guys had run out of your savings, right? Even being brought up the topic of the wedding now, only bitter memories resurface. Tom is just like Tom, and his wife, Catherine, is no different. At the time, since she was pregnant, she couldn't fly. But if that hadn't been the case, they'd likely have insisted on an overseas wedding. They splurged on a nice place domestically for the honeymoon, given that overseas was not an option. We cheerfully gifted them because it was a new beginning. Never did we imagine that after claiming they had no savings, we'd end up covering hospital expenses for Catherine to deliver their babies. It seems that the wedding expenses were more than we imagined. Yet many of the photos that are being sent show scenic views that seem to be from travel destinations and beautiful hotels. Tom always came to us saying,
"I can't tell our parents-in-law about this."
Even the third time, he was severely scolded by my husband due to his lack of planning and not thinking about the baby's future. We can't ignore the hospital fees, so it couldn't be helped. But this is different, isn't it? Now that you're parents, you should focus on raising your kids and earn a stable income. Please, don't rely on others so quickly. Start by reviewing your own household finances. Tom, being 5 years into his career, should be receiving a proper salary. Before asking for help, he should be able to get back on his feet, I thought, and pushed them away. However, on the other end of the phone, Tom just complained.
What the heck? We're talking about your grandkids. Besides, I have 3 kids. You could at least help out a bit. I'm having a tough time too.
He ranted loudly. Before we knew it, the call was cut off. I hesitated to tell my husband, but thinking that he should be aware that Tom is struggling with money, I decided to bring it up at dinner.
Well, even though he says it's tough, there must be some circumstances. It's troubling that they're not trying to be independent, but with 3 kids and both Tom and Catherine working hard, shouldn't we support them a bit?
With that said by my husband, we pondered a bit about what to do with our savings. However, 1 week after Tom's call, a situation that overturned this discussion with my husband occurred. Astonishingly, Tom's entire family came to visit our house.
We hadn't shown our faces yet this year, so we thought we'd come home.
Tom and Catherine and their 3 young kids. They were all holding suitcases and backpacks, and that caught my husband and I completely off guard, and we quickly tidied up the room and welcomed them into our home. You should have told us. Did you find the way okay? It's quite a distance from the station, isn't it?
You sent us a celebration gift, right? The address was written on it, so we were able to come by taxi.
While surprised, of course, having all the family return home was joyful. It was the first time since the birth of our 3rd grandchild. The grandkids were initially scared of the old country house, but they gradually got used to it and began to energetically run around and play.
Take care of us for a while. Catherine and I are going to look for jobs around here.
Huh? What do you mean by that? My husband and I were stunned. Shockingly, Tom and Catherine had quit their jobs and planned to move in with us. The reason they had brought 3 large suitcases was that they contained their daily necessities. Moreover, their previous home was company housing, so they had to vacate upon resigning, and their belongings would be delivered to our house the next day. What was even more astonishing was that Catherine was smiling as Tom spoke. She wasn't being forced to come, and she had willingly come here with the family.
The city has bad air and cramped houses, but in the countryside, prices are lower, and since you 2 are here, we can both work. It's better for the kids to have a spacious house to run around in. There probably aren't any waiting lists for childcare here either.
While we were left speechless, Tom, unfazed, continued to eat his dinner heartily. While it's referred to as the countryside, it's not exactly in the middle of nowhere. There aren't many places to play, but a 30-minute drive can get you everything you need for daily life. Nonetheless, we were so surprised that Tom and his family had moved without any prior discussion. I remembered the phone call from the other day. It seemed they were struggling with city life and took extreme measures to save money. When I pressed them about getting new jobs, both Tom and Catherine confidently declared,
Of course.
Yet their smirks and giggles gave off a suspicious vibe about their intentions. What will you do about the kids?
We're living with you 2, right? Nowadays, it's common for grandparents to help out, so both the parents can work. Catherine had been trying hard all by herself since we have 3 kids. You've probably been neglecting to help with the grandkids.
Astonishingly, Catherine, sitting next to him, nodded in agreement and said, We've always talked about how great it would be if you 2 could help. I could work more and you'd get the grandkids all to yourselves. It's not a bad deal for you 2. It was clear from their eyes that they saw us as convenient tools to push their responsibilities onto us. This was totally unacceptable. My husband seemed to realize that supporting our son and his family was a mistake. We decided to firmly distance ourselves from them. We have our own lives to live. It's too sudden for you to demand money and then just show up without discussing it first. It's very inconvenient for us." However, Tom smirked and glared at us.
You should be happy to live with me and your grandkids, right? You've always wanted to see us. If you say things like that, we'll leave. But are you okay with never seeing your grandkids again?
Never? I was taken aback by his harsh words and inadvertently asked back.
I mean, there's no other reason for us to come to this countryside other than for money. I thought you'd be pleased. It's unbelievable that parents would abandon even their grandkids for money.
The couple was trying to force their way to live here at any cost. We had reached our limit with how they acted towards us. Once again, we firmly told them to leave. They frowned and glared at us even more intensely.
I will seriously never let you see the kids again. You two had abandoned us.
Tom finally stated that he would cut off ties with us if we didn't accept them here. He will never visit again and will never let the grandkids see us again. Furthermore, he won't send photos either. Instead of being surprised, we were enraged at what Tom was saying. Fine. Okay. After all, Tom and your family have only come back to our home.
Yeah. Finally getting through, huh?
Then we'll go back to our home too.
What?
Saying this, Tom's eyes widened in surprise. I told my husband to pack our bags and retreated to our bedroom. Although my husband was puzzled, we quickly packed our clothes into 2 suitcases. Thank goodness that there were no issues with my husband's work, since he could work with just 1 laptop. We're giving you this house. We're going back to our parents' house, so we can't look after the grandkids. Holding 1 suitcase each, we told them this in the living room. Tom looked back at us, looking confused, not fully understanding the situation. Your furniture is coming too, right? Having ours might be in the way, so I'll arrange for ours to be picked up quickly. Hearing this, Tom finally seemed to understand that he could get this house for free, and his smile returned.
Ah, if that's the plan, then things are easy. Having a house is great. It really helps out.
Let me know when the moving company is coming. I'll help too. Catherine also seemed overjoyed. With heavy hearts, the next morning, we left the house we had lived in for 10 years, as if being driven out by Tom and his wife. There was hardly any time to eat breakfast. Then I first explained the situation to my part-time job, and somehow arranged to quit that day. The manager and I were close, and perhaps because I had often talked about Tom's impulsiveness, the talk was wrapped up smoothly.
You barely had breakfast, did you? Regardless of him being someone else's son, what a thing to do to your own parents.
The manager was indignant, as if it were his own affair, and even gave us a farewell gift. Next, I contacted my parents' house. Given the circumstances with Tom, I had no intention to impose suddenly and planned to head there after staying a few days in a hotel. However, his misdeeds were well known to my parents too, so we were welcomed to their home immediately. Furthermore, my parents themselves managed to arrange for a company to collect the furniture through their contacts. Saying we would slowly dispose of things stored in a rental storage, my parents also arranged all that, enabling my husband and I to rest. The next day, Tom and his family moved their furniture into the house happily, and all the food and other items were disposed of by the professionals. However, when their furniture was delivered, it seemed like they had chosen the cheapest moving service, so the movers just dropped off the items and left. Tom tried to order our movers to carry the furniture, but of course, setting up furniture was not their job, so they quickly left after their job was done. Hearing them yelling at the movers gave us another headache, but their terrible behaviors didn't stop. Just 3 days later, we received a call from Tom.
Hey, something's wrong with this house.
His voice sounded like a child throwing a tantrum and saying that they practically can't live there and begging for help, that I couldn't help but laugh. After all, we had lived in that rather old house for 10 years. Now years later, and with all the large furniture removed, the countryside house, much larger than the one Tom's family had been living in, must have been especially challenging for them. With their furniture not filling the space, there must have been huge temperature differences throughout the house. More than anything, what must have been hard for our city-bred son was dealing with the numerous ants, spiders, centipedes, and geckos. It's a house in the countryside after all. It's close to fields and woods, so of course, there are insects. And even mice might appear if you don't set traps during certain seasons.
Why didn't you tell me all this earlier? How can we live in this dirty and dangerous house?
Have you been leaving windows open with just the screen door, like in the city? Have you been leaving the trash out? Do you have any insect repellent? Did you get rid of cardboard boxes immediately? If you don't want to see bugs in the countryside, you have to do at least that much. We invited you to visit our countryside home many times after making sure to take such measures, didn't we? A woman's scream, presumably Catherine's, can be heard from the other end of the phone. There is a huge fuss, with her yelling, "A lizard! A lizard!" Given the volume of her screams, the lizard is probably more startled than her and will quickly flee.
Just come back already. We can't even sleep or wake up in peace, let alone do housework. It's your house, so you should do pest control. If you can't do that, then rebuild the house to a new one or something.
Once again, Tom has said something outrageous. However, we no longer have any attachment to that house. If you want to leave, please feel free to do so. It's your house now, so do as you wish. I immediately hung up the phone. In order to teach him a lesson, both my husband and I set Tom's number to be blocked for incoming calls. I let out a sigh of relief in the spacious living room of the apartment. Actually, the home we went back to wasn't our childhood home, but it was our parents' final home. The home we bought wasn't brand new, but thanks to our parents' meticulous cleaning, it felt like it was new and as comforting as that home we used to live in, making it a very cozy place to live. We had planned to live together with our parents and take care of them, so there were more rooms than we needed. Although we had to move earlier than expected, our parents were genuinely happy, so we decided to gratefully accept their offer. Later, I found out from the manager of my part-time job that I used to work at that Tom's family had moved. It seems that country life was too much for them after all. They probably returned to the city and are now looking for work. After confirming that the house was empty with no furniture, we demolished it without any hesitation. We also sold the land, completely cutting ties with a place filled with 10 years of memories. Nearly half a year later had passed since the demolition, and a few months later, when the manager happened to pass by the area, he coincidentally saw Tom's family visiting. Wanting to say something, they approached the manager.
What happened to the house that was here?
Standing in front of a sign that read "Land for Sale," Tom seemed at a loss for words, and looked quite flustered. The manager explained the general situation. It seemed Tom had hoped to mooch off us again, thinking we might not be able to kick them out if they came back with the whole family once again. But to his surprise, even the house was no longer there.
As you can see, after the previous residents moved out, the land was sold. Are you thinking of buying this land? With kids, maybe you're considering building a brand new house? No, we aren't. You're quite ambitious for someone so young? That's good. Shall I contact the landowner for you?
Tom, with a pale face, quickly left, dragging along his angry wife and their kids. Meanwhile, we were living peacefully with our parents. They have no health issues and spend their days walking, attending classes, and living an ideal retirement life. There are no issues between my husband and my parents either. On weekends, he and my father go fishing together. I realized that I prefer working outside, so I began looking for a new part-time job. Hearing from the manager that Tom had visited made me feel a bit sorry for him, but the ones I feel most sorry for are his kids, who are caught up in all this. Just to be sure, I've informed Catherine's parents about the situation in detail. They've kindly offered to take in and protect the grandkids if necessary. Perhaps we made mistakes in raising our child, but he and his wife are adults now. It was Tom who threatened to cut ties with us. In any case, they need to be independent before we can start any discussion between us. Considering they had the audacity to return to where the house once stood, we believe they haven't reflected on their actions. So that's why we're still cutting off contact with them.